The Goat House is back, recapping every single Week 14 NFL game, giving each team a grade like we do every single Monday night. Loads of NFL content here every single week. Check it out, but let's break down these grades. Obviously, a very entertaining game on Thursday Night Football. The Lions beat the Packers 34-31. Give the Lions an A-, the Packers a B+. You may say maybe a little generous given the defense was pretty terrible in the second half, and the Packers play calling was pretty bad at the beginning of this game, but I just felt like a battle between what it is, heavyweights in the NFC. Felt like two really solid, really good teams going at it, especially two strong teams on offense, which it's going to take in the playoffs to win a Super Bowl. So I thought it was just two very solid teams here. And like I said, I was a little surprised about the play calling from the Packers right away, given the Lions D-line was extremely beat up and Lee McNeil went down. Run the football. Run the football. I think they could have they dug themselves a little bit of a hole early. I think they could have been either in the lead or more in it, and they wouldn't have to dig themselves out, which they eventually did. Could have been a little easier, or maybe they could have won the game as well if they didn't do that. So I was a little surprised about that, but they couldn't stop the Lions. Fourth down, the Lions converting on third downs, fourth downs, and just getting down the field with ease. And a lot of people are talking about how questionable the officiating was, and it's understandable, but I do think the Lions did enough, and that offense was just that dominant, especially on those key fourth downs. If you give up those fourth downs that easy, there was one that was obviously a big-time stop, but you're going to lose the game, if the Packers in this case. So it was a very fun game. So, think highly of those teams, obviously, in the NFC and the NFL in general. Now, this was the opposite, a pretty close battle game, but it's between two teams that aren't very good. Not really a surprise because it's the Jags and the Titans. Titans definitely could have won this game. 6 points is very disappointing. They moved the ball. I don't want to say they easily moved the ball, but they, got stopped on fourth down. 3 times, 2 times in the red zone. Felt like they were definitely going to score in a couple of those. Calvin Ridley going out of bounds at the end of the game. So, Levis getting banged up a little bit. So that was pretty tough. But the Jags defense getting better as right around the Minnesota game. Felt like the defense, then they had the Detroit game. The defense wasn't great in that one. But overall, I think it's getting a little bit better, but it's a little too late. But not much going on offense. They got shut down for 3 quarters, right? So, tough to grade either team high. The Jags offense didn't do anything. In the fourth quarter, sure they did. The defense played pretty well. The Titans still kind of moved the ball. They just got stopped on a single down. The opposite with the last team, the Lions we just talked about did. So, felt like a C and a C- for two struggling teams that kind of struggled in this game. A thriller here in the AFC East. The Dolphins beat the Jets 32-26. I gave both teams a B-. If we're grading the Dolphins off the fourth quarter and overtime, you probably give them an A+, but that's not what we're doing. They just were sleeping throughout most of this game. Even the offense, it's like there was flashes early, but it's kind of underwhelming. You kept going like, God, they probably should be scoring more. They probably should be finishing drives a little bit better here. They have the opportunity. And the Jets were moving the ball so easily, and the Jets were completely outplaying the Dolphins majority of this game. And when was Aaron Rodgers? When was the last time he threw for that many yards, too? And they were missing Breece Hall, obviously, on offense, and they're still able to move the ball. So the Jets did outplay the Dolphins majority of this game. The Dolphins dominated the fourth quarter. Tua obviously played very well. Still, to the end, the Jets were moving the ball pretty easily. So what if they would have got the ball first in overtime? They didn't. Doesn't work like that. But gave both teams a B-. Dolphins were the better team at the end of the day, but for most of the day, it felt like the Jets. But it makes me wonder about the Dolphins. They got to show up for 4 quarters. The defense was starting to play much better recently. Maybe not the Packers game, but they stopped the run pretty well. But then where did it go in this game? And it's just a team you can't really fully trust. I do think they're a lot better than their record, obviously, but it's a team you can't really fully trust. B- for both these teams in this game. Falcons, Vikings. Vikings win 42-21. Now the score was a lot closer for most of this game. It did feel like the Falcons were trying to play keep up. The Vikings got up by 8 at one point, and you felt pretty good. Like, all right, here goes the Vikings. The Falcons went right down there and scored in 2-point version and got it, but then since that point, the Vikings kind of took control, took over in this game. So for most part, it was a little closer than this, but the Vikings fully executed in this game. I know they gave up some yards on defense. They gave up quite a bit of yards. Mooney killed them, so they can't have that, but the Vikings defense, if you know that defense, it's a bend, don't break defense. And they actually executed when it comes to that. They typically let teams get to midfield or just in their territory, and that's where they kind of take over. And, they didn't do that throughout the entire game. Again, Mooney was killing them. The Falcons had some production, but they were really good in the red zone. They had 2 interceptions. One was in the end zone, obviously, one handed by Byron Murphy. Absolutely ridiculous. They didn't allow a single passing touchdown. That was the game plan. Of course, I know Kirk Cousins has been struggling, but it's a guy that can throw the ball, a guy that knows the Vikings defense. They have star receivers. They have a star running back. So they know that, they're going to, the Falcons are going to have some splash plays. Let's just keep them out of the end zone. So even though there was a lot of yardage, I think the Vikings are actually happy with the defense on that, in this game. And the offense just could not be stopped. The only flaw was they were allowing pressure and sacks on Sam Darnold, but Darnold played probably his best game as a Viking yet. It really feels like he's getting better because his flaw was kind of a one-read guy earlier in the year when the team started doubling Jefferson. I got to work this over here, and he's forcing things. He's not seeing open guys, and he was starting to drop off a little bit, but now he's adjusted to that, and he's looking really, really solid. And Jefferson and Addison went absolutely crazy in this game. Whenever they wanted to move the ball and score, they could do that, and they actually put a team away. Usually they outplay a team. It's a little close, so they actually executed in this game, even though it was a little closer throughout most of it. So I like what the Vikings did. Game in A. And the Falcons, they had some production, but they could not finish fully. And no passing touchdowns, 2 interceptions, in the special teams mistake, and the defense. They got sacks, but I'll circle back to that. The defense was brutal. They lost in coverage. And the Vikings would have ran the ball more. They could have had, they ran the ball effectively. They could have had even more success doing that if they needed to, wanted to, whatever. But the Falcons got a bunch of sacks and pressure on Sam Darnold, had production, so it's pretty pathetic that they got beat up like this. So they get a D+ for this. The only reason it's not lower is they had some production and some sacks at least, and it was closer for a little bit. Another one of those games where it just felt like a game between, it was a battle, but a game between two not so good teams. I know the Saints have been playing a lot better, and they can be. Derek Carr's hurt, so that's unfortunate. But they weren't that great in this game. I know defensively they did fine. They should do that in this game. I was surprised they couldn't get Kamara going more. The Giants are awful stopping the run, so very surprised they couldn't get him more. Just kind of felt like the Saints rely on Taysom Hill, who's now out. Obviously was out going into this game for the rest of the year. So, and unbelievable play to block that field goal by Brian Bruzzi, because a guy that heavy being able to jump and land and make, that was ridiculous. You looking at that in slow-mo, was like, it doesn't even look real. So insane there, but wasn't thrilled for either team. The Giants defense played a little bit better than I expected, but it was kind of just one of those games. So a C for the Saints, a C- for the Giants. Panthers, Eagles, I thought they were pretty even in this game. The Panthers realistically could have been in this one. They could have won this game, really. It's kind of the story of the Panthers. They had the Chiefs, they had the Eagles, they had the Bucs last week especially. I feel like they're better in their record right now. The run defense is still just terrible, but they're playing a lot better. The offense, and no one was able to, it's not like they went crazy on offense, so I don't want to make it sound like that, but it's the only offense that's been able to do something like this to the Eagles defense. So the Eagles did get some key stops in crucial moments, though, on defense, and Barkley went crazy, and they had the lead for pretty much all. Panthers were trying to keep up a little bit, and they kind of did. But Bryce Young made some big plays. So I just felt like both teams were right around a B. I'm a little more impressed with the Panthers, but because you expect to be way more impressed with the Eagles. But the Eagles got to just start putting teams away and not starting slow, because some of these good teams might, I know they're on a run, but some of these good teams might make them pay for that. So that's kind of the worry with the Eagles there. But I know, Leggett had that drop. It wasn't the easiest thing in the world, but man, they could have won the football game, obviously. So Bryce Young playing a lot better. I'm just a huge fan of Dave Canales. You guys know I hype that higher up big time. Huge fan. So I'm excited about the Panthers' future. They got to figure out the damn run defense, so that's for sure. I know they'll get Derek Brown back next year, but still need some more help there. But both teams going to be for this outing. Browns and Steelers, and early in this game, it felt like a little interesting. It was really early, but going to the Steelers play against the Browns didn't last too long. Steelers had this game. You kind of could feel at the same time like that was going to happen. No George Pickens on top of it. Defense was lights out. They got after Winston. They made him miss all kinds of throws, just made him hurry and just had to make decisions there. So defense was lights out in this game, and offense got moving when they absolutely needed to. I think if they absolutely needed to score more points, then they could have done it. So without George Pickens, and obviously they don't have like super key big time receivers without him. So I'm thrilled with the Steelers in this one. Again, it was a little sketchy, somewhat early, but 27-14 Steelers win. I give them A. Defense was awesome. I mean, the Browns been productive on offense lately, so not in this game though. And the Browns just, nothing going for them. Just felt like they didn't have a chance, after things kind of took shape, kind of got going here. So A for the Steelers, D for the Browns. Raiders and Bucks. The Bucks handle business fairly easy in this one, 28-13. Honestly, what's stopping the Bucks from being in the A range and what stopped this from being a snot pounding of a game was the turnovers. Yeah, they had a few turnovers, and the Raiders started getting pressure on Baker. Baker's been a little turnover worthy, actually turned the ball over the last couple weeks. So was playing much better earlier in the year. But early in this game, he had a couple dominant drives in a row, and they kind of did enough to extend that lead and hold that lead. So overall, the defense played much better than expected. I know O'Connell got hurt, but they were making him struggle a little bit, and he looked really good against the Chiefs a week ago. So I was happy with the Bucks in this game. They're very close to being an A-. You can't really turn the ball over 3 times, though, and let that happen and get that grade. But give them B+. And give the Raiders D+. Could be worse, but O'Connell went down. They were creating some turnovers. They were getting pressure on Baker. I was just surprised the offense couldn't do a little bit more. I mean, they got in the red zone a little more than to think they can score a little bit more points, but it just wasn't there. Bucks dominate this game. Seahawks and Cardinals, and man, since the bye week, Kyler Murray has declined a little bit generous. I mean, he's hurt them the last 3 games. It's not all on him, obviously, but the last 3 games, 2 of those being against the Seahawks, and look at the Vikings game, he had turnovers that completely changed the game. I mean, completely. Look at the first Seahawks game, the pick 6. I mean, that changes everything. It's just at that point, it felt like the Cardinals aren't going to win this game. Look at the Vikings game. They're outplaying them most of the game. He throws a bad interception. The Vikings are back in it, and he ends the game with a bad interception. You look at this game, the Cardinals start very strong, and then interception, touchdown Seahawks, and right away, interception, touchdown Seahawks. It's a completely different game. So the Cardinals just fell off after they just drained them after those turnovers, and Murray's starting to fall off post-bye week. Feels like almost an every year thing. I mean, last year he missed the beginning portion of the season, but that he starts super hot, like one of the better quarterbacks in football, and kind of falls off a little bit. So I don't know if they need a quick turnaround here. The Rams are getting good. The Seahawks are getting good. And the Niners turning around one this week. So they really got to get things going. They might need some help, even though that division's still close. But this was brutal. I mean, we almost could expect the Cardinals to start with a score. They seem to do that, at least a field goal, but they start right away with a score. So it doesn't really mean much at this point. Obviously, it's good. It's a good start. And then they turn the ball over a couple times, and it's south. It's south from there. They couldn't stop Charbonnet. Seahawks were the much better team in this game, but did it have to be that way? If you take away those interceptions, which we can't, but I'm just saying, hypothetical, is it a different game? It might be, but the Seahawks kind of could do what they wanted. The defense has been awesome under Mike McDonald, especially the last couple weeks, especially since they got healthier. So very much thrilled with Seattle. Again, Charbonnet looked really, really good in this game. You start to wonder, does he need more carries? Is he the better back? Actually, hard to believe, but maybe. So Seahawks, A. Cardinals, again, after that start, they had nothing going for them. Very, very disappointing. They couldn't really stop Seattle. They couldn't fully execute, and then turnovers, so they get a D-. Bills and Rams, really, really bad defense in this game. So you could argue lower grades, but it just felt like a battle between 2 really good playoff teams. And when you have this good of an offense, I still think it's offense of era. It's an offensive era. So when you have this explosive of an offense and elite offenses here that just keeps going back and forth, it's just too good. It's just too powerful for almost any defense. And it just felt like a heavyweight battle for the most part. But there is a little bit of a difference between the grades, because the Rams had control of this game. There was times where it's like, are they going to beat their ass? And then the Bills kind of come back in it, and they're staying in it. Like, no, the Bills have a chance, but it felt like the Rams. And this is another one of those games where people question the officiating. for sure at the end. But at the end of the day, the Rams just did so much on offense and controlled this game that they definitely deserved the win, even though some calls definitely went their way, especially at the end. But yeah, just too much from Stafford, and Puka, especially Cooper Kupp, of course. And the Bills' defense, I mean, we know about the run defense, but the pass defense really slipped up. The Rams figured out something here in this game. So that kind of puts some worries, I guess, when it comes for the Bills and their defense all of a sudden, which has kind of been a problem at the end of the season every single year. So is it now it's time we're really watching which team's going to get hot at the right time, which team's ready for the playoffs. So this isn't really great for the Bills defense if the offense was lights out. So I give them a B because Josh Allen, the offense was great, but they were trying to play keep up. Rams offense was insane in this game, and they just outplayed maybe the hottest team in football. So I give them an A-. If it wasn't for the defense struggling, then they would have got a much better grade than that. But that was a fun one. Easy one here. The Niners, it felt like they had this game over instantly. It felt over instantly, especially by halftime for sure. I mean, the difference in yardage was almost laughable for a 49ers team that's extremely, extremely injured and been really struggling lately. So that was a surprise. Not really a surprise the 49ers win the game, but that it was going that way. So they definitely get an A+. And the Bears, I mean, yeah, just brutal. Just nothing on offense in the first half, and the defense obviously couldn't stop them either. So they get an F, and they always seem to turn it around in the second half. And there was a little of a spark in the beginning of the second half, but then there was that turnover that kind of changed that. Not that I thought they were going to come back or anything, but just a quick little spark in that turnover. And then live, when I was watching that game, they were like, upon replay assistance, it's a fumble, and I was like thinking, what? Like his arm and his hand was definitely going forward, but then they showed a replay close up, and for some reason he turned his body, and then the spark kind of went away after that point because the Bears, they adjust, I guess, in the second half because they got the offense the talks when the offense has been so much better, but they have, I don't know, they have so many quarters where they do nothing, and then they kind of do finally figure out something, and it's just, but they already dug themselves a hole. So it was kind of one of those games, but they stayed in that hole for the most part. So it's a dominant outing for the 49ers, and the Bears. I thought they would be a little bit more, fight a little bit more. Post Eberflus seems to be what happens when teams fire their coach. So that did not happen here. So A+ for the Niners, F for the Bears. Chargers versus Chiefs, I guess entertaining in the second half and down at the end, and the Chiefs just find a way to close once again. They win 19-17. I wasn't overly thrilled with these teams in this game. If you watch the first half, the Chargers did absolutely nothing, and the Chiefs didn't do a whole lot, but they obviously they had a good lead there, and the Chiefs didn't do much of anything except for that last drive in the second half, and the Chargers got things going in the second half. But looking at the first half, defensive first half, Chargers had nothing, and you're going, well, that's elite defense game. I didn't really see that. I saw a good defense, but, I mean, Herbert and Palmer, they had a wide open touchdown, and they didn't connect on that. I actually thought, everyone's going to blame Herbert for that, but I thought Palmer is going to separate the men from the boys when watching football and understanding good routes. Some people will probably say that's a really good route just because he had the double move and he had separation. But when he comes out of that double move, I don't know what he was doing. The way he bend, shouldn't be bending that. So I actually think that was a bad route, and then Herbert missed him barely. But then there was another throw that I'll put on Herbert. Johnson had McDuffie beat, even though McDuffie played very well in the first half. He actually had him early, and even in the middle of this play, Herbert just saw him really, really late. He ended up throwing it. It was a tough catch by the time McDuffie caught back up. So I thought the Chargers had potential to score a lot more. I just thought it was bad offense. Same for the Chiefs. Chargers are playing good defense in the Chiefs. But Mahomes surprisingly was stepping into sacks. I know there was some pressure getting after him too. The offensive line wasn't great. I thought it was good defense, but if I had to pick bad offense in the first half or good defense, I had to pick one, it was bad offense. So I wasn't overly thrilled with these teams, and the Chargers were getting going in the second half, and they blew that last drive, and the Chiefs were kind of stalling in the second half. I wasn't overly thrilled. It was a fun game. It's two good teams at the end of the day, but give them both the B-. The Chiefs just know how to close. They're the best in football doing it. So they find a way, and the doink was crazy, but you could see it hit the inside of the upright, so that was going in. It was very close to being just in, right to the side of that. So it's not like they got super lucky. I don't know. Even though the doink, usually when someone doinks it in, it's a little lucky. I guess it didn't doink back out, but he hit the inside, far inside of the post. So yeah, that's how it is there. But overly wasn't that impressed with these teams in this game, but it was a fun one, at least in the second half and down the stretch. And the Monday night game, another one of those where I wasn't really thrilled with either team. Not that they played awful. I mean, both teams had production on offense. They're able to move the ball. It came down to a wild special teams play. I don't recall last time seeing that where a team blocks it but then botches it, where obviously they fumble it. So don't see that one every day. It's like a good special teams play turned into an awful special teams play. Gave the Bengals another shot. I felt like they were going to play for a field goal, but Chase ended up getting loose and scoring, which was big. Played for a field goal. I feel like they would have missed it depending on how far it was. But yeah, that's kind of what it came down to. It was an odd game because it was more of an offensive game. Bad defense, but it felt like there could have been so much more scoring. I felt like the Cowboys could have ran the ball a little bit more because it was effective. The Bengals can't stop the run. Definitely were working their way into the red zone. They had a tipped interception early, just not being able to finish. They easily could have scored more points in this game. And I feel like the Bengals could have as well. The amount of production that Jamar Chase had, and then Chase Brown I thought was running the ball well. I think it was the matter of just getting it, both teams, the matter of just running the football more. So overall, wasn't thrilled with the play calling and the coaching in this game. Surprise. The Cowboys defense is getting better, though. It is getting better. They're finding different ways to get pressure. Still gave a lot of production. I almost saw more double teams on T. Higgins than Jamar Chase, so that was odd, and Chase was just constantly open. They didn't have one guy on him the whole time. You saw Diggs on him a bit, but yeah, T. Higgins, I felt like there was a safety over the top of him for the most part, so the Bengals couldn't really get him going, but it ended up being okay. They win the game. Just an odd one. Just still think both these defenses are brutal. I really think the Bengals defense is brutal. It didn't really show fully in this game, but they finally clutch up and win a football game. It felt like they were a B-. The Cowboys were a C+. Somewhere in that range. Could have went B, B-. This is kind of what I felt like going with here. But that wraps it up for the grades video here every Monday night with this one. Full NFL coverage ahead for Week 15. Loads of content every single week. Like, subscribe, turn notifications on so you don't miss any of it. Almost time for playoffs. We'll have full coverage for that as well. That's going to do it. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.